Introduction. In the last unit, we discussed the division of the speech sound into vowels and consonants. We decided that vowels are sounds produced with the mouth quite open and that consonants are produced with more closed mouth. We also saw that vowels occur in the middle of the syllables while consonants occur around the edges. Our aim in this unit, as well as in the next two units, is to think about three principal components of consonants. We will describe their voicing in this unit and then look at their place and manner of articulation in the following two units before moving on to vowels. Speech production, exercise 2.1. To start with, let us have a think about how humans produce speech. Which part of our body do you think are involved in the process of making speech sounds? How can we make different sounds? Comment. How have probably mentioned parts of the mouth, tongue, lips, and teeth, and possibly internal organs such as the lungs and the brain. You may also have noted that different sounds are produced by altering the position of the mouth, the ideas that we will now explore in detail. Some parts of the body used to produce speech: nose, lips, larynx, trachea, vocal tract, lungs. There are a large number of body parts involved in speaking. Aside from anything else, we need our brain to plan words and sentences and to send appropriate signals to the rest of our body. However, the activity of the brain is beyond the scope of this book, and we will not consider it further here. Instead, we will focus on the parts of the body between the lips and nose and the lungs. These body parts are labeled in figure 2.1, and we will look at the other non-labeled structures in more detail shortly. 2.3.1 The necessity of air. It will become clear as we walk through this book that air is required in order to produce any speech sound. We hear sound when some medium, usually air, is set into vibration. Even the sounds of ringing crystal glasses or music played through an MP3 player involve air set into vibration. Sound then travels as waves through the air until it reaches our eardrums, where the vibrations are passed to the inner ear and are eventually turned into electronic signals which are sent to our brains. Sounds can travel through other media too, but will travel at different speeds than if it is traveling through air. This is why things sound different when you put your head underwater, where sound can travel more quickly than in air. It is putting their ears to the conclusion. It is also why in westerns you sometimes see people listening for horses' hooves by putting their ears to the ground. As sound travels more quickly through solids, the sound of hooves will be heard in the earth before it heard in the air. Thus sound needs a material to travel through and for that material to be set into vibration. In speech, we usually set air into vibration. In producing most speech sounds, including all the sounds used regularly in English, the air we use comes from the lungs. This air travels up from the lungs, passing through the trachea windpipe until it reaches the larynx, where it might be set into vibration. The larynx is commonly known as the voice box, and the front of the larynx is the protrusion that can be felt in the front of the neck, which is called the Adam's apple in man. The air passes through the larynx into the vocal tract, which is the air passage of the head and neck. What happens in the vocal tract will be the focus on the following three units. Our major concern in this unit is with what happens at the level of the vocal folds which lie inside the larynx. In order to imagine where the vocal folds are, it is helpful to imagine that a person has had their head chopped off and you are looking down into their neck from above, and you might then be able to see the vocal folds as two strings of tissues arranged in a V shape with the point of the V at the front. Vibrations of the vocal folds. The vocal folds do not stay in the same position all the time. A person can either be kept the vocal folds wide open, known as keeping them abducted, as happens during normal breathing, or shut them completely, known as keeping them abducted, as happens when coughing. When they are shut, they block the flow of air from the lungs, as happens when we hold our breath. During speech, the folds can either be kept far apart, as in figure 2.2, or they can be narrowed, as shown in figure 2.3, so that they vibrate when air from the lungs passes through them. As we said above, sound is produced when air is made to vibration and the vocal folds front fascia back. The vocal folds abducted. Vocal folds. The vocal folds narrowed. Vibration of the vocal folds is one of the major ways in which we make our speech audible. It is important to understand that the speaker does not use muscles to open and close the folds for every cycle of the vibration. Instead, muscles are used to narrow them by just the right amount so that aerodynamic constraints take over and they vibrate in the airstream from the lungs. If you are interested in acoustic phonetics, you may be familiar with the term Bernoulli effect, which describes how this happens, voiced and voiceless. In the most basic terms, a sound produced while the vocal folds are vibrating is called a voice sound. A sound produced while the folds are not vibrating is called voiceless sound. All vowels are voiced, as we will see later in this book, but consonants can be either voiced or voiceless. Voiceless sounds usually have the vocal folds wide apart, or for a few sounds they may be tightly closed. There are various ways to tell if sounds are voiced or voiceless. The first is to feel the larynx with the fingers while producing a sound. Vibration can be felt quite easily for some voiced sounds. A second way is to cover your ear while producing a sound and see if you can hear a buzz, which indicates that vocal folds vibration. Voicing is present. Exercise 2.2. Number A. In the pair below, one word starts with a voiced consonant and the other with voiceless consonants. Think about the initial consonants of each word. Say them out loud and try to work out if they are voiced with vocal folds vibration or voiceless with no vibration. Chip, zip, volt, volt. Govern, govern, dance, dance. Tip. Remember to isolate the consonants rather than trying to say the whole word. And remember to say the sounds out loud. If you whisper, this will not work, as whispering never produces vocal fold vibration. Where some of the pairs easier to work out than others, why do you think that might be? Comment. The words beginning with voiced consonants are zip, volt, govern, and dance. The first two pairs tend to be easier to work out, partly because the consonant sounds are longer, giving you more time to focus on whether or not you feel vibrations. We will talk about more about this unit in unit 4. About this unit 4, we will also see other reasons why some sounds are harder to categorize than the others when we start to think about the allophones of voicing in unit 9. Symbols for English consonants. As we mentioned in the last unit, phonetics have an array of spatial symbols with which they can write down or transcribe the pronunciation of words and sounds. These are the symbols for the voiceless consonants of SSPE with an example word to show where each sound occurs. P is in pig, F is in fun, T is a theory, S is a soon, Sh as in ship, Ta as in tank, K as a kind, H as a home, Cha as a cherub. These are the symbols for the voiced consonants. B as in bent, V as a volt, T as in day, Z as a zen, Sh as in pleasure, D as a tell, G as in grind, M as in male, N as a nail, Ng as a song, Ch as a June, L as a lol, R as a red, J as a yogurt, V as a vent. Exercise 2.3. Let us have a look at the symbols above for voiced and voiceless consonants. Try to work out. Number which ones looks familiar and seem to represent the right sound? Which ones look like their sound represent a different sound? Which ones look unfamiliar? This is not like letters of the English alphabet. Which letters of the alphabets are missing? Why they are all have round them? Comment. Number A. These symbols are all part of the International Phonetic Alphabet, which aims to provide a separate symbol for every meaningful sound in every language of the world. The alphabet has been through many incarnations since the 19th century. Many of the symbols will be familiar to you, probably B, F, Sh, T, K, H, B, F, J, T, K, M, N, L, R, V, and seem to represent the same sound as in English spelling. This is because many of the authors of the alphabets were Europeans and drew on symbols used in the spelling of their native languages. Other symbols, however, were added when needed. Number B, the most confusing consonant symbols for English speakers is probably Ch. We are used to this symbol being used in spelling to represent the sound at the start of July and Judy. However, in many other languages, Ch is used to represent a sound like that of the start of Young, which is also its IPA usage. Number C, the familiar symbols are probably Th, Sha, Cha, Ja, Nga, Cha, and Ja. Ta was an old Ta was an old English character called Ta. Ja is a character called Yoga and represents a different sound to Ja, even though some people write the letter Ja using the symbol. Ta is in Greek known as theta. Nga, sometimes known as M, and Sha, known as Sh, Ish, were used by Bateman in an alphabet that was precursor to the IPA. Cha and Ja was both combination of other symbols for reasons that will become clear in Unit 4. You might expect to see symbols like sh, k. These symbols do not represent any English sounds, but we will meet them later when we'll talk about other English languages. As we saw in the previous unit, the letter sh can represent a number of the letter C can represent a number of sounds normally written as C can be transcribed with K in words like can and Sha as Sha in words like ice. QU as the queen is transcribed as Kwa. Slash brackets round the symbols are used to tell us that the symbols represent sounds, just as less than greater than is used to indicate letters. It is important, therefore, that we always include brackets to indicate whether we are noting sounds or spelling. Exercise 2.4. Look at the bold consonants in English in each word below. Many, feather, chick, bat, need. Work out whether they are voiced or voiceless. Work out which symbol is used to represent them in transcription. Number tip. To complete the exercise, remember to isolate the consonants from the rest of the word. That is, just say the consonant on its own. Comment A and B. Many starts with ma, which is voiced. Feather has a voiced fa in the middle. Feather has a voiced tha in the middle. Chick starts with ch, which is voiceless. Bat ends with the voiceless the, and need ends with voiced the. Exercise 2.5. You are now ready to begin transcribing. Of course, we have only introduced the symbols for the consonants, so just use V as in the place of any vowel sounds for now. All the followings are breeds of dog. And the words get longer and harder as you go along. Pug, Afghan, Terrier, Rottweiler, Chihuahua. Tip: you may want to work out of a CV structure first, and as always, do not be fooled by spelling. Pug is pug as an easy one to start with. Afghan is P voice G. As easy one to start. Afghan is R as a vowel. F as a F, V as a noun. Derriere is the vowel ra, vowel ra for rhotic speakers. Without the final ra for non-rhotic speakers. Do not throw by the double R. Double R. The spelling Rottweiler is a tricky one. Firstly, the double T only represents one th sound. Secondly, some people pronounce the W as V and some as V because this words is German place names. Also, there is the issue of rhoticity. Rhotic speakers will produce a final r, whereas non-wording speakers will not. Any of the following are acceptable: r vowel, th vowel, vowel, r vowel, tw vowel, y vowel, r vowel, t vowel, y vowel, r, r vowel, t vowel, a vowel, r. Chihuahua is a great illustration of the contrast between sounds and spelling, because this dog breed is named after a Mexican state. It's rather different to pronounce to most English words. Cha vowel, v vowel, v vowel, v will probably be a good transcription for most speakers. The importance of the voicing parameters. As we go through the book, we will see that we need to understand voicing for a variety of reasons. To begin with, we will look at some typical examples of child speech that illustrate the importance of voicing. Exercise 2.6. The transcriptions below are an example of how a young child learning SSPE might produce words. Orthography, adult target, child's version. Orthography dog as the vowel g. Child version the vowel k. Bird the vowel the. Child version b vowel the. Cat g vowel the. Child version g vowel the. Have a look at the words above. Which sound does the child produce correctly and which are incorrect? Can the child produce both voiced and voiceless sounds? Is the child more accurate at the start or end of words? How might we describe the patterns present in a child's speech? Component b, k, the are always produced correctly. G is pronounced incorrectly. The is correct on one occasion but not on the other. The child shows evidence of producing both voice the and b and voiceless k and the sounds. The child only makes mistakes at the end of words. At the end of words, the child can only produce voiceless sounds. This is a process known as word final voicing, devoicing. It is common in young children as their language develops. Interestingly, some languages never allow word final voiced consonants. Dutch, for example, has identical production for pairs such as hard, 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 both will both both with a final the. Exercise 2.7. Knowledge of voicing can also help us when we are learning to transcribe. In written language, we add an sh, we add an s to most sounds when we want to pluralize them. Therefore, red becomes rats, rum becomes rums. However, things are not quite so simple in spoken language. Think about rats and rums. If you make the final sound really long in its case, you should be able to hear and they are different. Listen to the sound and feel your larynx. What do you notice? Comment. You should be able to hear and feel that the two sounds are different. If you feel your larynx, you will feel that the sound at the end of rats is voiceless, sh, whereas the one of the end of rams is voiced, ch. In fact, when a noun ends in the voiceless sound like the th in rat, we pluralize it with voiceless sh, and when it ends in a voiced sound Like the m in rum, we pluralize it with voiced j. However, you will find this does not quite work for words ending in sounds like f for reasons we will discover in Unit 4. Similar things happens when possessives too, as you will see if you compare the sound made by the s in Jackson Jones to take care. Though the remember that this rules only works for suffixes ending that we add to words, such as plurals and possessives. It is perfectly possible to have sh following a voice sound when such endings are not involved, such as the word false, f vowel, la vowel, sa. Summary: in this unit, we have seen that some consonants are voiced with vocal folds, vibration, and some are voiceless without such vibration. We have also learned the symbols for transcribing SSPE consonants. Looking forward, in the next unit, we can move on to another features of consonants, place of articulation, and begin to introduce sounds from other languages. Just review questions. Have a look at the following question to see if you have understood the main point to be learned from this unit. How do humans produce speech sound? Where are the vocal folds found? What is the difference between voiced and voiceless sound? Copy the flashcard at the back of the book. Find an example word for each sound and then add this and voice to voiceless to the back of each card.